There are about 4 teams that realistically remain in the conference title race in the Big 12, and 2 of the biggest games on the Week 13 slate is upon us, and we're excited to dive into it. What's up, guys? Welcome in to Somewhere in the Middle, the Big 12 show here, Play the Fight Song. We appreciate you guys tuning in again this week. As always, we are brought to you by our partners at No Rivals, shopnorivals.com. As always, when we get to the prediction segment at the end of the show, we will cover the Week 13 slate. Make sure you guys give me a score prediction of any Big 12 game below. Does BYU pull off the road upset at Arizona State? What's the score? Let us know the score. You go 2 for 2. And as always, if you're subscribed to us here, Play the Fight Song, we will get you guys a hat at shopnorivals.com. Go and check them out if you're a Big 12 fan and one of the best hats in all of college sports. Use the code PTFS for free shipping at your checkout. All right. Guys, appreciate you tuning in back. I know we missed last week's episode. Some things going on. Went to Ames for the Iowa State-Cincinnati game. It was a busy week last week. It's probably okay. My picks were terrible anyways. You didn't want to hear it. But I think I'm ready for Week 13. I believe every team is playing this week for maybe the first time all season. At least it's been a month and a half. So we are going to finally see every single team on the Saturday slate. Again, we got BYU at Arizona State, Colorado at Kansas. These are some of the biggest games that the conference race has probably seen this year. Some upsets led to where we are today last week, and we just have to dive into it. It's going to be a shorter episode as we got to roll. We are recording our live Wednesday night show. If you guys see this on Thursday or whenever you check this video out, go back to our channel, check out our live Wednesday show, Play the Fight Song. All right. I think before we dive into the Week 13 slate, we just got to cover the college football playoff rankings and these few games that we're going to kind of get down the stretch with those 4 remaining teams, basically BYU, Colorado, Arizona State, and Iowa State. What's the picture for the Big 12 in the college football playoff race? What is at stake for each team? What are the scenarios for each team? And does the Big 12 kind of have a chance of maybe getting screwed over? We'll kind of dive into it. Let's look at the rankings here. If you're watching us here on the YouTube, the newest polls came out. BYU is 14th in the hypothetical playoff projections. They have Boise State jumping BYU as the 4th bye, and they will get that 4th seed, which leads BYU to be the 12th seed and would be playing Ohio State in Columbus for a first round game. The Boise thing doesn't surprise me. I think it should bother Big 12 fans, though. I think it still is a slight that what the committee sees this conference as is kind of a complete joke. They're basically just saying that Boise has a better loss at this point and not really a better resume. Strength of schedule, BYU continues to have a better resume than Boise. And it's right now, it's just, I think it's the committee just kind of saying maybe I heard the metaphor dangling the carrot in front of the rabbit. I kind of do see it that way, seeing that the committee views a G5 winner as one of the big boys or one of the top 5 teams in college football. Now, if you see on the graphic there, they still get the 12th seed or the 12th ranking or whatever you want to call it, and that puts them as the 4th best conference champion. I don't buy it. I think the only thing I could see is if maybe a 2-loss Big 12 team wins the conference title, then you might talk. I might be a little bit understanding there, but right now, if BYU wins out, there's no doubt in my mind they would take the 4 spot. But I think as an underdog this weekend, heading to Tempe, the committee is kind of just presumably saying that we think BYU is going to lose one more before the end of the year. I think SMU, again, got slighted. BYU owns the head-to-head with SMU. So to put them behind SMU it's even funnier in the rankings. It's a Big 12 show, so I'm not going to go all into it on each and every single team. But, I mean, right now, your first 2 out are SMU and Tennessee, and BYU gets that last 12th seed, and they're respecting the conference champion. Colorado's at 16th. Obviously, this is the second best team in the Big 12 right now. This is probably the hottest team in this conference. playing its best football in the month of November. Be interesting to see. BYU lost this week, could jump Colorado potentially. Even they could jump, 13 or 14, even maybe the top 12 in the actual rankings, or they'll just get that 12th seed. Arizona State gets into the top 25 for, I believe, the first time this year at 21, and Iowa State makes its way back into the top 25 after a home win against Cincinnati at number 22. The rest of this is kind of just up for grabs. It's a one bid league at this point. With BYU losing that home to Kansas this week, I can argue it's really not that bad of a loss in the way Kansas is playing football right now, but the community, obviously, we all know doesn't see it that way. This is a league that the committee just doesn't respect, I guess, for lack of a better term. And the one thing that does worry me this weekend in week 13, you need Army to lose. If you were a Big 12 fan, you want Army to lose. And the back of my mind, they're sitting there at 20. Does Tulane win out and become the 5th best conference champion? Now, this would maybe happen in 2 instances. A Big 12 champion with 2 losses wins the league, or a Big 12 champion with 3 losses wins the league. And I don't really see that one happening, but the 2 losses is definitely very much possible. And I think it will happen because I honestly think BYU might slip one of these 2 last 2 weeks, but we'll see, right? So is a conference champion, American conference champion, Tulane have a better resume than a Big 12 team? I don't think so. And I think the simple argument is, well, Tulane lost to Kansas State, who's not even in the top 4 right now in November, at home. So you didn't even lose to one of your top 4 teams in the league right now. And they lost to both of their Power 4 opponents in Oklahoma and Kansas State. Good wins like Louisiana, assuming they play Army in the American Championship. They beat Army, fine. But I still think BYU's got a better resume. That one, in the back of my mind, is something I don't think people are really bringing up. But there is some whispers about the Big 12 possibly getting just bounced out of the playoff in general. And you have these 2-loss SEC teams that just keep lingering around. You need a couple of these guys to have 3 losses on your resume too. So we'll wait and see. We'll play it out. Again, I think our Big 12 champion is going to represent the college football playoff grade. If they have to go to Columbus in December, there's a lot of teams that I like to put up a fight. Now, they're going to be double-digit underdogs, but there's going to be a couple of teams that I like to put up a fight with an Ohio State team at this point who's battling some injuries, or even potentially could be Oregon, could be any of those guys. So we'll have to wait and see. But at this point, this is most definitely a one-bid league, and I'm really, really interested to see how it really shakes up after this week. If BYU, your number 1 team in this league, goes down. So that being said, let's get right into it. We got the week 13 slate on deck. I believe we have 8 games starting at 2:00 Central Time. I love the slate this week. I think there's a lot of fascinating games outside of obviously the 2 biggest ones. Picks last week, I put it on my Twitter. You can follow me on my Twitter right there at JSchaeferCFB. 2-4, and frankly, they weren't great. We haven't had many great weeks this year, but we come back each and every single week. And if you want to fade my picks, go right ahead. I'd be glad to make you some money. We were on West Virginia at home. Gross. We were Kansas State, obviously. I thought they had a chance at home. Good win on Arizona State. And we did pick BYU. It was such a toss-up, but I just wanted to see more from Kansas, and I feel confident at where the Jayhawks are now going into week 13. So I think that they're the real deal. First one, 2:00, Arizona at TCU. TCU is an 11.5-point favorite. These are 2 teams with major offensive inefficiencies right now. TCU still can't run the ball. Arizona gets a good win at home last week, 27-3. The defense played its butt off against Houston. They capitalized on a couple of bad turnovers. I still am not completely impressed or completely thought that this Arizona offense has changed really its identity in the last 2 games of the year. They are what they are at this point. Conley had a couple of big runs for them. But outside of that, on the road, I like TCU in the spot. Take the points if you want. Could Arizona cover in this situation? Absolutely. I don't know if TCU is 11 points better than Arizona, but right now I'm going to take a TCU team who fighting for 7 wins. That just feels like that is one of the more under the radar storylines in the league this year. They've just kind of won games that they're supposed to, but they lost early, and TCU just hasn't been in the conversation for the Big 12 since. But I'm going to take TCU there. We'll save the best 2 for last. Give me Texas Tech at Oklahoma State. Texas Tech is a 3.5-point favorite. Not a ton to play for at this point. If you watch this one, you are a Big 12 sicko. As somebody who took Texas Tech early this week, this is one of my best bets of the week. I want to lay the points on the road with Texas Tech because I get it. I get the parity and I get the numbers of Oklahoma State and how it's just the Big 12. Anything can happen. But right now, Oklahoma State feels like the only team in the league that's kind of quit at this point. The showing at TCU a couple of weeks ago was just horrendous. And the offense probably put out its worst game of the year against a team in TCU who, quite frankly, it's not a good defensive team. So I don't I don't know. Do you get an Allen Bowman revenge game? Maybe. I think it's senior day in Boone Pickett Stadium. You still get Ollie Gordon versus Taj Brooks. That fascinating matchup between 2 of the best superstars in this league, or at least once were. My question is just kind of rattling off in my head. Is this the last? I mean, we could get Ollie Gordon again next year, right? At this point, I don't think he's going to the NFL. The NFL has a loaded running back class for next year. His stock has obviously gone completely down. Does he stay at Oklahoma State? Does he go to the draft? I would love to know. I believe he's a junior, so he can definitely come back next year. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but really fascinated to even see that. And we're a couple weeks away from the transfer portal, guys. I think Oklahoma State's a team to really keep your eye out on maybe just the shakeup of that roster. So Texas Tech, one of my best bets of the weekend. Take the Red Raiders. UCF at West Virginia. Took West Virginia last week. It felt like a Neil Brown special where you're playing an unranked team at home and he just finds a way to pull the rabbit out of the hat again. I think he might be out of magic tricks at this point in the season. UCF has Utah next week, and obviously you're favored on the road at West Virginia. Utah is a home game for next week as well. So you're favored in this one. You're going to be favored next weekend. UCF could get to 6 wins. And I don't think that was something their fan base thought a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't even something that crossed my mind. And now it's on the realm of possibility. Now, 6 wins is still a disappointment in their eyes, but I think it's something to finish strong and lead some momentum into 2025 after you did basically remove Malzahn from play calling duties. You fired your defensive coordinator, all that kind of stuff. The Dylan Rizek kid, maybe that's somebody you just build some momentum with these last couple of games. He's been pretty good, and just you owe it to RJ Harvey to just have a couple of big performances in these last 2 games. Really concerned with what the atmosphere and the attitude of West Virginia's home field will be on Saturday. It's fire Neil Brown from everybody at this point. I really haven't seen otherwise. So I think West Virginia knocks themselves out of bowl eligibility. I could be wrong with this loss. I think they're sitting at 5-5. But either way, I think UCF gets this one done because they're going to be able to run the football on this West Virginia defense that is just, quite frankly, really bad if they're not creating turnovers. Baylor on the road at Houston is an 8-point favorite. This is one of the hottest teams in college football right now. Baylor somehow from somewhere is just playing its best football in November. And they get another huge win last week at West Virginia. And Sawyer Robertson is playing like one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I think I saw in Tom Fornelli's top 10 quarterbacks right now, power ratings. He has Robertson at 10. This is a Houston team that you can't play from behind. You make too many mistakes last week at Arizona, and you just don't have the offense to keep up. I don't think you're going to make maybe too many mistakes, but it's almost like Baylor's just going to get the ball right away, go down and score, get a couple of scores up. You're up 14-0, and it's over at that point. Really considering taking the 8 points with Baylor in a best bet, but I'll take Baylor to win the game nonetheless at Houston. Just can Dave Aranda get to 8 wins? Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Iowa State at Utah. Iowa State is now a 7.5-point favorite. If you guys tune in every single week, you know I'm an Iowa State fan. You know we break those games down on our channel. Go check that out. We have the full Utah preview and Cincinnati recap. I'll keep this one short. I think Iowa State just needs to capitalize in the red zone. I think Utah's defense is still going to show up on senior night. They're going to play really, really hard. You're going to get limited opportunities to score, and you got to make the most of them. Otherwise, you could find yourself in this ugly 10-13 game on the road that you don't want to be a part of. So I still like Iowa State, and apparently the betting market does too. That's actually crazy. I don't know if I would take 7.5 with Iowa State in this spot. I haven't seen enough offensively to change my mind that this team can just go and hang 34 on the road or something like that. But we'll see what Utah team kind of shows up. I know that the offense won't score much, but I think the defense will play still hard. I mean, Kyle Whittingham's one of the best coaches in college football, one of the most tenured coaches for a reason. So I know he'll have his guys ready to go. Cincinnati at Kansas State. Kansas State, 9-point favorite after falling last week to Arizona State. Some really weird comments. You hope everything's okay from Coach Kleiman. He was really distraught after last week's loss, saying he kind of let the older guys down and things like that. Obviously, this was a team who had a ton of hype going into the year. Avery Johnson was everybody's dark horse to be one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. Just hasn't been it, right? But they were basically still playing for their conference title hopes up until last week. You gave it away at home. So, hasn't been the season they expected. I think you still have some things to play for. You're going to be really, really good next year. You're still going to be one of the top 5 teams in the league preseason next year. There's no doubt in my mind. So how do you get off the mat and respond in this one? 9-point favorite at home. Cincinnati has, they have K-State, and then I believe they got somebody else at home next week. So Cincinnati sitting at 5-5. They want to get to a bowl game. That's a team who I think maybe I need to do a temp check with the fan base, but it feels to me 6 wins in your second year in the Big 12 would be a win. I would take the points if I were Cincinnati, if you're betting on Cincinnati, but I think Kansas State finds a way to get this one done at home. Defensive line, Dante Corleone left the game last week in Ames last week with some sort of injury, and I don't know if he'll be playing. But if that's not the case, I think DJ Giddens has a chance to run the football well again this week. And just, it's a test for, I think as an Iowa State fan, this one's really fascinating because you're going to watch the film and see how Iowa State's former linebackers coach Tyson Veit, now defensive coordinator at Cincinnati, handles Avery Johnson in that kind of dime stack, sit 8 back and force him to throw. It's a really interesting test for Avery, who's struggled to throw the ball this year. Still think they get it done at home, but I'd take the points with Cincinnati if I were you. Last 2 biggest ones of the weekend. Let's go first. Colorado at Kansas. Just saw a tweet from the 247 guy at Kansas that says there could be 55,000 in Arrowhead Stadium this weekend. I think this is a 2:30 kick on Fox. That'd be awesome. I believe this is their last game at Arrowhead for the year. I'm really interested to see how this secondary in Kansas goes up against Colorado's receivers. I think this is the best secondary Colorado has probably seen this year. My second close would be K-State. Nebraska's got a decent one, but just corners, like you got Mello Dotson, you got Kobe Bryant. Kobe said something in the presser this week that he's really, really excited to go up against Travis Hunter. Listen, he doesn't shy away from anybody. So if I'm rooting for that guy, if he's on my team, I'm all for it. But yeah, let's see if it's time to put up or shut up. Another 3-point spread against a 4-6 Kansas team. BYU had a horrendous pick in the end zone from Retzlaff, and then that pooch punt that pretty much sealed the game for Kansas. Does Kansas get a couple of those bounces this week? I don't know. They're really good at forcing turnovers and interceptions since those two have kind of been there. But Shedeur is one of the better. He's one of the more patient quarterbacks in college football. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks in college football. I just don't know if I see that happening this week. I love the story, but Colorado's defensive line has not gotten enough credit. Those guys get pressure on anybody. I want to say they're top 20 in sacks this year. And Daniels doesn't do well with pressure. And I don't think he's seen pressure in the last 3 weeks since he's been playing good football, basically since probably the Kansas State game. So I like Colorado in the spot. As you know, Iowa State fans are hoping that they can get this one done, that Colorado can lose and Kansas can get this one done. And the minute they started that 3-game stretch of Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State next week after Iowa State lost to, I'm already blanking. They lost to Kansas. After they lost to Kansas, I'm like, Colorado's just playing the best football out of anybody in this league right now. And that 3-game stretch, I think, it just suits right into their strengths. So I like Colorado on the road in this one. BYU at Arizona State. Arizona State is a 3-point favorite against the higher-ranked Cougars. Jordan Tyson needs to get his shout out. Leads college football in yardage, I saw today, since week 7. The guy's playing like a first-team all-conference guy. Him and T-Mac, that matchup next week is going to be awesome. But this one's interesting. BYU's defense relies on turnovers. We know that. If you're Jake Retzlaff, how do you get off the mat after? I mean, it wasn't your best game of the year last week by any stretch. This Arizona State team, to me, just continues to play really good football. Sam Leavitt was a guy this is finally his first year getting a full season of starts, and he's playing just really, really good football down the stretch. I lean Sam Leavitt in this matchup against Jake Retzlaff, and I think I know that they have the best running back on the field in Cam Scatterbo. LJ Martin's played really good for BYU, but I think the better offense in Arizona State right now sold out. I saw tickets were going for like $300 in Tempe in the month of November. Tell that to an Arizona State fan 4 years ago. It was 4 years ago when Herm was around. They probably wouldn't have believed it. This team has everything to play for. I do think that this is one of the best teams in the Big 12. I think Arizona State, I think Arizona State whoops them. I really, really like this spot for the Sun Devils. So that would mean we have Arizona State and Colorado sitting at a top of the Big 12, and your newcomers could be playing for a Big 12/Pac-12 conference championship in Dallas in 2 weeks. So to repeat, we have TCU, Arizona State, Colorado, Texas Tech, UCF, Baylor, Iowa State, and Kansas State. We are taking all the favorites to win. That's what we do in this. We don't take the points, except my best bet if you want to take Texas Tech. That's probably going to be wrong. You can fade me at this point if you want. It's the Big 12. You'd think we're 13 weeks in, you'd stop taking every favorite, but I mean, what's the fun in that, right? I do like the favorites in a lot of situations this week. It feels like the favorites in a lot of different situations are just playing much better football than their opponent. And at this point in the year, with 2 weeks left, you got to just think there's probably 4 teams, 4 or 5 teams in this league that are probably checked out, that are probably done. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait and see. That gives us the Week 13 slate. Again, guys, our Week 13 slate prediction and preview is partnered by our friends at No Rivals. ShopNoRivals.com. Give us a score prediction of any of the Big 12 games this weekend in the comments. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel. If you like all things college football, here at Play the Fight Song, we got you covered with everything. And our live Wednesday shows, check those out. And we should be doing a Sunday recap this Sunday as well. I think that Week 13 is going to have I don't know. I just have a gut feeling that this week, not only for the Big 12, I think the landscape of college football, it's going to get weird. A lot of teams are playing with a lot at stake, and they're playing puckered up. Things get tight. You got to have your best football. We'll see how that shakes up at all Big 12 centric. We'll break down the tiebreaker again next week. I think that's something that we should go through, because if teams win the way they're supposed to, I think a lot of people are going to need that clarification next week. All right. We will be back for Week 14. We appreciate you guys tuning in, as always, each and every single week. Like the video, subscribe to our channel, and we will see you guys next week. I always send us out. We got to play it.